Tonight, a subdued celebration at James Smith Cree Nation as more than a dozen community members are recognized for their response to the mass stabbings. And
I've gotten calls from the Conservatives, I've gotten calls from the Liberals.
Outgoing Cowessess First Nation Chief Cadmus DeLorme hints at a continued role in politics.
This is CBC Saskatchewan News.
It's Thursday, February 23rd. CBC Saskatchewan News starts right now. Good evening, and thanks for joining us. It's been 6 months since the mass stabbings at James Smith Cree Nation. Today, community members who helped others during the tragedy were recognized with medals. They say many others deserve one. Pratush Dayal reports.
The Lieutenant Governor of Saskatchewan, Russ Murasti, says these medals are symbols of gratitude to those who stepped up to help the injured, the shaken, and the grieving. After a stabbing rampage left 11 dead and 18 injured. Ray Linden is the nurse manager in the community, and he says they are still helping people heal.
It's not just an honor for myself, but it will be an honor for all the community members and for all our staff.
He's one of the 16 people to receive the medal here at James Smith Cree Nation, and they are among 7,000 medals being given out by the province to honor the late Queen Elizabeth II's 7 decades on the throne. Murasti told the small crowd that the Queen's last public message before she died was to share condolences with the James Smith First Nation. So he believes it's fitting to give out these medals here in her memory.
A medal does not change the past or prevent pain, but it is a tangible symbol of the gratitude felt by your community and your province for your service.
Denise Whitehead checked housing units after the emergency alerts and says the horrific scenes are something she doesn't want to ever see again.
I would do anything for my community, and I do go and help all the time, and so it's just natural.
Terry Sanderson looked after the elders during the tragedy, but says his work is still not done.
Yeah, we were working hard at with the families themselves, doing all this healing and making sure that it's going to take a while for us to get where we once were, but we're going to get there.
Chief Wally Burns says it's an important day of recognition for those who helped his community.
Our first responders, without them, things wouldn't happen, and I'm very thankful for our people that stepped up after the tragedy.
He said there are many others who deserve a medal. Pratush Dayal, CBC News, James Smith Cree Nation.
A new direct flight between Saskatoon and Minneapolis will begin in June thanks to government intervention. The province announced last week it's backing the flight with a minimum revenue guarantee. As CBC's Adam Hunter reports, the move is drawing criticism.
On Friday, the province announced it's guaranteeing that WestJet will make $2.2 million in revenue on its new route to Minneapolis over the next 3 years. If it doesn't, the government will make up the difference. The minister responsible is calling it an insurance policy, one that he believes the province will not have to pay out.
Everything I've been hearing anecdotally is that we're going to be having a lot of demand on this particular route, but as a provincial government, we absolutely are prepared to backstop to make sure that this flight continues going forward.
A flight between Saskatoon and Minneapolis hasn't been offered since 2016. Minister of Trade Jeremy Harrison says the province worked with the Saskatoon Airport Authority, WestJet, and city leaders to restore a direct route between Saskatoon and the U.S. It's a partnership with Delta Airlines and will run 3 times a week from June to late October. The deal is in place for 3 years. But taxpayers being on the hook for a flight is not sitting well with everyone.
They could be correct. But that would mean that the provincial government of Saskatchewan has a better understanding of demand for flights than WestJet does. And I'm not sure what the foundation of that expertise would be.
The economics professor says the financial risk is being transferred from a multi-billion-dollar company to the Saskatchewan government. The Canadian Taxpayers Federation says it's not happy with the deal.
I can understand the situation the provincial government sees itself in, but really when we kind of look about this issue, instead of giving money to private businesses, taxpayers' money, we should be looking to Ottawa to work on reducing airline regulations and fees and taxes to make it easier to operate an airline in this country instead of shoveling out taxpayer dollars to do that.
More taxpayer backstop flights may be on the horizon. Harrison says the provincial government is prepared to offer a similar deal to the Regina Airport Authority if it can secure a direct route to the U.S. On Wednesday, Regina City Council unanimously approved a tax break of more than $1 million to the Regina Airport Authority. But Council placed a condition on the tax break, saying that the airport must secure a daily year-round service to a U.S. hub. Adam Hunter, CBC News, Regina.
While the provincial government is ready to prop up WestJet, the NDP says it's doing the opposite for local businesses. The official opposition critic for jobs in the economy joined the owner of a Regina restaurant today to call out the government for slapping businesses with increased costs. Energy and power rates have jumped a few times over the past year, with more hikes to come. The co-owner of the Cure Kitchen and Bar says their power bill has gone up by hundreds of dollars, and that increased costs have slowed their recovery from the pandemic.
One thing that has had to occur is price raises. Our cost on goods has obviously increased, as everyone has noticed. Food product has increased a lot. But then with the additional increase of utilities, there's really no option but to raise prices. And then I think our consumers really feel that hit as well. Things that were, a luxury but were affordable and were maintainable aren't necessarily that way anymore.
And this is potentially hundreds of small businesses across this province that are on the verge of bankruptcy because the government has added on costs, increased taxes, and hiked rates at every opportunity.
The NDP is calling on the government to scrap the rate hikes. SaskPower has said the latest rate increase is to cover the federal carbon tax. Meanwhile, Sask Energy has pointed to higher natural gas commodity prices and other inflationary costs to explain its hikes. Mayor Sandra Masters has responded to an open letter condemning her allegations of sexism related to a lawsuit last year. Two Regina City councillors filed the lawsuit in an attempt to force city administration to include a motion to end homelessness in the preliminary budget. At the time, Masters says the lawsuit had tones of sexism because it was filed against Regina's first female city manager. More than 100 women and non-binary people took issue with that and signed the letter. They say fighting homelessness helps women. Masters said she respectfully disagrees with their letter.
The notion that the deep concerns around houselessness are mutually exclusive of the treatment of council's employee, I don't agree with that notion that somehow they're mutually exclusive.
In other City Hall news, Council unanimously approved the removal of the heritage designation for St. Matthew's Anglican Church. The nearly century-old building is falling apart. Council's decision allows the Diocese of Capel, which owns the building, to transform it into a community hub and rental housing. A Regina man who had a $400 snow removal charge added to his property taxes won't have to pay up after all. We told you about Al Bodnachuk's predicament last week. He can't shovel his sidewalk due to health problems. Under a new bylaw, the city sent a contractor to clear the snow for him, then dinged him on his tax bill. Regina's city manager says the charge has been removed. Nikki Anderson says the situation didn't demonstrate logic or empathy.
Do we want people to be shoveling their sidewalks? Of course we do. When our employees are faced with a situation that does not seem to make any sense and that doesn't show what I would say is empathy, that's problematic.
Anderson says administration won't be re-examining the snow removal bylaw, even though the mayor said last week that's what should happen. The chief of Cowessess First Nation, Cadmus DeLorme, has just 2 months left on the job. He recently announced he won't run for a third term, but he's still focused on reconciliation, and he's not ruling out more work in politics down the road. He spoke with CBC's Bonnie Allen about his future.
The chief of Cowessess First Nation was thrust into the national spotlight nearly 2 years ago when he announced 751 potential unmarked graves near a former residential school in the community. Now, ready to leave his job as chief, Cadmus DeLorme will chair a federal committee dedicated to identifying and sharing historical residential school documents.
To my amazing Canadian friends, many have put their shield down now and are admitting, maybe I don't know much about the truth between Indigenous people in Canada. So this journey for these ad hoc committees, these First Nation committees, it's closure.
That's not a full-time job, though. DeLorme says he wants to focus on 2 areas: business innovation to reduce carbon emissions and reconciliation.
I feel my tone and my voice and my eagerness to get consensus to an end goal could play a part there. So I still have 2 months to figure it out.
I'm not going to let this go. What consideration have you given to federal politics?
I do have aspirations. I do see myself playing a future role, potentially as an MLA or an MP. And I just want to be a dad right now. I want to be a husband, just need a break from politics. So down the road, I do have some aspirations.
How far down the road? Next federal election?
No, I can't say. I gotta pick a party first. I tend to lean left at times and tend to lean right at times, and I'll tend to stay center. And I do know in our great democratic process in this country, parties do matter.
DeLorme confirms he's received phone calls from the federal Liberals and Conservatives, and yes, he's trying to learn French as well as his traditional Cree language. For now, he wants a job that allows him to be home with his young family.
I'm in my last diapers right now, so about 2 months. I'm hoping no more diapers on my side. And I'm so good I can change diapers on Zoom, and you wouldn't even tell I'd be moving like this right now.
He says he plans to take a break from politics for a few years and says he'll work with anyone who wants to advance the interests of Indigenous people. Bonnie Allen, CBC News, Meadow Lake.
As DeLorme looks to a new role focused on documenting the history of residential schools, a federal MP is calling for a tougher approach to tackling falsehoods about the institutions. Leah Gazan says there is increasing misrepresentation and rejection of facts about the schools. CBC's Olivia Stefanovic explains why Gazan wants some of that rhetoric declared hate speech.
Dear Dr. Supernant,
ever since the discovery of possible unmarked graves near former residential schools, Métis archaeologist Keisha Supernant has been targeted with letters like this.
They shouldn't even be classified as a burial site because I can guarantee you the radar is not accurate.
She calls those messages residential school denialism, twisting and dismissing facts about the institutions created to assimilate First Nations, Inuit, and Métis children.
I'm already dealing with the emotional toil of spending my time walking over potential graves of children who went missing. And then for that to be called into question makes the work a lot more challenging.
There's a difference between free speech and hate speech.
This MP already got the House of Commons to acknowledge genocide happened at residential schools. Now she wants Parliament to legislate denialism as hate speech.
That kind of speech is violent and re-traumatizes those who attended residential school who constantly have their experience of genocide left up for debate.
Well, this is totalitarianism.
Frances Widowson was fired as a professor in part for her skepticism that residential school burial sites exist.
I could be misguided and wrong, but the answer to that is not to make what I'm saying illegal.
But author Michelle Good, who wrote an award-winning book about residential schools, says Ottawa needs to take this new threat of denialism seriously.
My mother watched her friend Lily hemorrhage to death from tuberculosis at the Onion Lake Residential School. We've known this. And so to have people respond to our lived experience as though it never happened is devastating.
Good says unless that rhetoric is outlawed, the country will never be able to achieve meaningful reconciliation. Olivia Stefanovich, CBC News, Ottawa.
Today, the RCMP announced a big win for a Saskatchewan man who had his prized hockey memorabilia collection stolen last winter. The Wayne Gretzky memorabilia was valued at $100,000. It included 19 autographed jerseys, pictures, pucks, sticks, and hundreds of hockey cards. They were stolen from a storage locker near Shellbrook. Police say they found about 3/4 of the stolen items at a home in the town. A 41-year-old man is facing charges. It's been pretty quiet around Wascana Lake in Regina as a deep freeze continues to affect the entire province. Is there a reprieve in sight? Ethan Williams joins us with the forecast after the break.
This weather update is brought to you by the Capital Automotive Group. Trade and upgrade is on now.
Welcome back. Weather specialist Ethan Williams joins us now. Ethan, the devastation I felt when I realized the extreme cold was going to continue into tomorrow. Please tell me you have some good news for us.
I'll spare you the further mental turmoil, Natasha, by telling you that yes, there is indeed a warm-up coming. Just have to wait a couple of more days. I feel like I say that every once in a while this winter, that we just have to wait. But it eventually does come. And you know, it could be worse because we have actually had worse before. In fact, if we look at February 21st to 23rd of this year, which has kind of been the crux of the cold that we've seen this year in Regina, we've had an average daytime high of around -20. And actually, incredibly, over the last year, over the exact same 3 days, we had an average high of -21.1. So we were actually a degree colder this time last year. And now in Saskatoon, kind of when we look at coldest temperatures latest into winter, March 1st, 2014 sticks out. This is just looking back over the past decade, so about till 2013. It was -25 almost on that day in 2014. But you know, we hit -27 yesterday for a daytime high in Saskatoon, so that puts it as one of the colder days kind of later into winter, or I guess getting closer to spring that we have seen in these past 10 years. -27.1, by the way, the coldest daytime high Saskatoon has seen so far this year, and I hope it doesn't get any colder than that. The warmest daytime high Saskatoon saw was 10 days before that, on February 10th, when it hit 4 degrees above zero. Don't you just love living here? Extreme cold warnings in effect still for the entire province. Alberta has now joined us in that extreme cold warning bingo, filling up every weather region in that province. In fact, 9 provinces and territories across the country under extreme cold warnings at this hour. And right now, the coldest air up in the north, close to -30 at Collins Bay, and through south and central. Not a lot of us cracking -20, but Hudson Bay and Prince Albert did it today, getting to -18. In fact, you're still at -19 right now. Factor in the wind chill, feels like -40 in the far north of the province, and even getting a little bit further south, we're looking at temperature or wind chills feeling like the -30s. High pressure going to keep things clear. Really not much to speak of other than that in our prairie outlook over the next few days, because it's going to get sunnier. Temperatures still going to be a little bit cold, but winds going to pick up a little bit at times, I think especially tomorrow in southwestern Saskatchewan, and again possibly on Saturday, but winds not going to be all that bad. High pressure going to keep that down. But we are looking for wind chills into the -40s overnight tonight in the far north, and in eastern sections of south and central Saskatchewan, I think we could get between -35 and -40. In fact, I think a lot of us will be there. Regina, we will see a 20-degree temperature warm-up over these next 48 hours. Very nice getting into Sunday before we see some sun and cloud to round out next week. For Saskatoon, similar warm-up. Still going to be cold tomorrow, but there is hope on the horizon. Natasha, I hope that gives you a little bit of hope.
It certainly does. Thank you, Ethan.
You bet.
About 60,000 people tried to attend this goodbye party for a giant panda. Shang Shang has been a star at the Tokyo Zoo since she was born in 2017. Earlier this week, she headed back to China. Like the rest of her species, she prefers to be alone, not even enjoying the company of other pandas. Stay with us. We'll be back after the break. Tomorrow marks the one-year anniversary of the Russian invasion of Ukraine. Today, the UN General Assembly approved a non-binding resolution calling for Russia to end hostilities and withdraw its forces. The vote was 141-7, but more than 30 countries abstained, many because they don't want to risk damaging their relationship with Russia. CBC's Abby Cowessess reports.
Bakhmut in the Donbass, still in Ukrainian hands. There's been relentless Russian shelling and months of brutal battles, but Western officials believe an even larger Kremlin offensive has already started. Allies have been promising and delivering military and humanitarian aid to Ukraine, the West making it very clear it stands firmly with Kyiv.
Russia must immediately, completely, and unconditionally withdraw its forces from the territory of Ukraine.
But some countries in the global south are finding it difficult to denounce Russia.
We shall now begin the voting process.
And they were unable or unwilling to condemn Moscow today. Some countries see this as a conflict between the United States and Russia.
The Cold War was not that long ago. There is a sense that African governments in particular don't want to be stuck in the middle of these two global powers. Morning,
She says there is also resentment over the West's hypocrisy.
We saw President Biden in Kyiv very much supporting democracy and the struggle for democracy there. That is not always mirrored in other countries. So the US seems to have a policy of democracy for the West and autocracy for the rest, as long as that meets US interests.
She explains Moscow also engages with some African countries in a way the West does not. Military funding is not linked to demands on strong human rights records. South Africa is conducting joint drills with Russia right now and recently welcomed Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov. African nations are also dealing with the global impact of the war, food shortages, high energy prices, and rocketing inflation. Many in the global south are calling for a negotiated peace.
We do have a peace plan right here in front of us. It's called the Charter of the United Nations.
Kyiv says Ukrainians are living the horrors of the invasion every day, but it will not give up any territory and reward the Kremlin to end this war. Abby Cowessess, CBC News, London.
And Ethan is back with another look at our forecast.
Another cold one tomorrow morning. I think we'll be close to the minus 30 mark in Regina, Natasha. But by the noon hour, getting up to around minus 25. Unfortunately, not getting much warmer than that. Wind chill sitting around minus 34. Some sun and cloud, maybe a little bit mostly cloudy in the morning with that, with the clouds starting to clear out. Saskatoon tomorrow morning also sitting around minus 30. Wind chill around minus 40. Some sun and cloud. And I think that's a theme that continues, at least for our sky conditions heading into the afternoon. Also sitting around minus 25 with that wind chill into the low minus 30s. Bob Ferguson sent us some great bird photos the other day. Today, the theme is the sun up at Waskesiu Lake. The first one there around a lovely campfire and just as it sets beyond the horizon. Fortunately, Natasha, don't think he'll be spending much time outside these next couple of days. A little too cold.
Still lovely to see that sun. Thanks, Ethan.
You bet.
And that's it for us tonight. For news anytime, you can head to our YouTube channel or online at cbc.ca/sask. Ethan will be back with more local news at 11. Thanks for watching. Have a great night.